mic check, please.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast.
I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brasher.
I'm your host, Katie Burke.
I'm your host, Dr. Jared Henson.
And I'm your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. The DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing.
Hey everyone, I'm Matt Harrison, and welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. We have with us this morning Dr. Mike Brasher, who is also our co-host of the podcast, and the one and only Edward Walt. Ed, how you doing?
Doing good. How are y'all?
We are great. We are so excited. We got some awesome stuff coming your way here in just a minute. But before we dive off into all the nuts and bolts, if you don't mind, just give our listeners and watchers just a little bit of an introduction about yourself, kind of your background a little bit, and also what you're currently doing right now.
I'm a photographer, owner of Wall Media. Started doing this 10 or 12 years ago, basically as a hobby. I just picked up my first camera and started taking it.
So just as a hobby?
Just as a hobby. I literally just wanted to take some pictures of my dog and take some pictures of duck hunting, and it kind of transformed into this, and kind of made a career out of it and built a little business. And so it's, that's basically at the end of the day, I just take pictures. Got some great guys that work for us.
You're a little too modest.
No, man, that's what I do. I just take pictures. That's it.
I'm just
and so occasional video.
Camera, started taking some photos. A few of them turned out good.
I mean, honestly, that's really how it happened. It was just I bought a camera as a hobby, and it took a lot of bad pictures for a lot of years. And they were, at that time, I thought they were good, but looking back, I realized how bad they were. But occasionally, there'd be a good one in there somewhere. And
was it digital at that time when you first started buying?
Yeah,
that's
they had to put their head under the.
I had to go under the curtain.
I was thinking, the 35 millimeter. You never dealt with that.
No.
Okay.
That
was because you had a full-time job.
Correct.
At the time that you bought the camera, like this wasn't something you were like, hey, I'm going to go be a full-time photographer.
No, I literally bought a camera to take some pictures of my dogs and me and my buddies hunting. And
were you out of high school? Were you out of high school?
Yeah,
so you were fully employed by then?
I guess 11, 12 years ago.
Okay.
And took a few, like I said, a whole lot of bad ones. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about cameras, but I know I liked doing it. And occasionally I would take a good one, and DU or Mossy Oak or Drake or somebody would repost it on Instagram. Okay. And so somewhere along the line, somebody was like, this guy's not that terrible, and started reaching out to basically do just some trade for, hey, we'll send you some products if you'll send us some pictures. And I really enjoyed photography and started wanting to learn more about it. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos and practiced a bunch. And
at what point were you like, okay, I'm pretty good at this, and I think I can make this a living? Like, was there a photo, or was there an instance, or was there a brand that reached out? Like, what kind of was like, okay, I think I can do this?
So originally, when companies were just wanting to do trade, when they would send you products in exchange for pictures, there wasn't any pressure necessarily. It was, hey, I'll take some pictures and send them to them. The first time a company reached out and said, hey, we'll pay you for this, honestly, I was a little nervous, because now I've got,
what have I gotten myself into?
If I'm doing it for free, you get what you pay for.
Absolutely.
It was actually, it's a company, Ren and Ivy. They reached out and said,
which is a very well-known brand.
Yeah, and said, hey, I'll pay you. And I was like, nah, man. He's like, no, I'll pay you to do this. And I was like, all right. Well,
give me $20.
Yeah, it's like, I hope I don't mess this up. And so, and it actually, so they were the first company ever actually paid me anything. And then, but you and I talked about earlier, this big roofing company out of Jackson started paying me to do photos for them, shoot video for them, and it was more and more and more and more. And I realized, man, I can making more money doing this. And so I had a discussion with my wife and said, look, I think I'm going to do this full time. And
and you're full-time professional photographer
since
now.
2018, I think.
Where can people go to find your stuff?
Edwall81 on Instagram, all the social media stuff. Edwall81. But yeah, and for a lot of years, it was just me. I still get stretched pretty thin. Yeah,
We're going to get into that.
Oh, yeah.
a bunch of irons to the fire, but I've got some great guys that work with me now and do a phenomenal job. They're super talented, and so it's the best thing about it is it's kind of allowed me to take on some more projects that are with some other companies that are really cool and allowed us to do a lot more things. And it's only so many hours a day, and if it's just you can only do so much.
Mm-hmm.
So having those guys has been unbelievable.
Yeah, no doubt. And we all know that you've taken some amazing photos. And if you're a waterfowl hunter, you're in the outdoor space, you've came across an Ed Wall photo, whether it be social media, at an event, at an expo, you have seen, whether you realize it or not, one of your photos, whether it be on the Mississippi license, whether it be it's everywhere. Okay, we all know that you've taken some really, really good ones. But take us back and through a little bit, because I was told that in 2018 you won a very big contest, and I want to know a little bit about kind of that whole contest and also the photo you took to win.
So every year, Ducks Unlimited magazine, I think it's their May-June issue, they have a photo contest where DU members can submit, I think it's 3 photos a year.
Mm-hmm.
So every year, that was like my big goal back then was I want to get one of my pictures in DU magazine. And they've got 3 categories, which is waterfowl, retrievers, and then waterfowl hunting. And so I would grapple every year with which 3 am I going to submit, and I would send them to people like I'd send them 8, and I'd narrow it down to like 8 or 10.
Which
like,
one do you think's the
pick your
best?
best 3. And so, it's always an internal struggle trying to figure out which 3 I was going to submit. And they have those 3 categories. They pick a winner and a runner-up, and then they have an overall winner and an overall runner-up. So basically, they're putting 8 pictures from DU members in the magazine, and that was every year I would just hope it was going to be me, and it never was. So 2018, I got an email that said I'd won the retriever category, and they were going to call and do an interview with me, and I was just blown away. I was super excited. So it was a picture of my dog in Mississippi and Mississippi Delta, bringing back a wood duck that was banded.
No way.
Yeah, we shot like a 4-man limit of mallards that morning and 1 wood duck, and the wood duck was banded. And as my dog came back with it, I was snapping pictures, and a big group of mallards works in, and we shoot it. It wasn't until 30 minutes later that I even noticed that
Are you serious?
This wood duck was banded. And I said, man, I think I was taking some pictures when I came back, and sure enough, I had a good one.
Wow.
2019, I won the overall
Contest.
Yep.
Wow.
With a picture I took up in Arkansas. And then 2020, I just assumed that I wasn't going to get picked again. I submitted 3 pictures, and I got an email that said I'd won the retriever category again in 2020, and I honestly couldn't remember what 3 I'd submitted. And so I had emailed the lady back, and I said, hey, can you send me what picture it was? And so,
I know I won, but
and so and I got an email from John Hoffman, who's the photo editor here at DU, and said congratulations. And so going forward, we would rather you not submit any more pictures. And
you're banned.
We'll pay you for them, and we'll put you on our list of freelance photographers. And I was blown away, because my whole goal was to get 1 picture in DU magazine, and here they're offering to pay me for pictures. It was kind of surreal, to be honest. It was. Still is.
So thus far, of all the photos that you've had selected as the to win an award or feature in some magazine or in the Mississippi license, which one is most memorable or special to you? Or is that an unfair question?
I guess. Well, I guess those are maybe 2 different questions. I'll say the most special to me. In Mississippi, when you buy a hunting license, you get a sportsman's license, which they send you an actual hard card that
card, yeah.
looks like a credit card. And one of my big goals in photography was, I mean, I've grown up in Mississippi my whole life, and I wanted to have a picture of mine on that card. And I've actually got 3 pictures that I've never put on. Nobody's ever seen them but me, unless I've shown them to some people on my phone, but I've never sent them to anybody because I've saved them specifically for
Wow.
the opportunity to possibly be on the sportsman's license. And I submitted them to possibly be on there, and it never happened. Well, last year, one of the guys that works at the Department of Wildlife, I'd been on the 2022 Mississippi duck stamp was a picture of mine, and he ran into me somewhere and introduced himself and said, "Congratulations on the duck stamp." And I said, "Thanks." And he said, "Have they talked to you about the sportsman's license?" And I kind of turned my head and I said, "No, they haven't." And he kind of looked, and I was
He
like,
said, well, never mind. Never mind.
yeah, and that's kind of how it went. And I said, "Should they have?" And he's like, "Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag now." He said, "Well, your picture's going to be on the 2023 sportsman's license." And I was like, "Yes, finally." And so, well, and I'd submitted these, the 2 main ones I'd submitted it's a picture of a deer and a picture of a turkey. And I said, "Well, is it the deer or the turkey?" And he said, "Oh, neither one."
Oh boy.
You got the wrong person.
Yeah, so I was like, "Okay, well," and he said, "It's a picture of he said, I think it's your dog."
Wow.
He started describing the picture to me, and I said, "Oh, okay." And I knew exactly which picture it was. And he said, "We've never had a dog on the Mississippi sportsman's license." So I was like, "Well, that's,
wow.
to be honest, that's even cooler."
Yeah.
It's
No doubt.
my picture with my dog, and so on something that was really important to me. And
Yeah.
so I would say that one's the most special to me. Most memorable would probably be the one the 2019 one from Arkansas that won the overall DU
For the
contest
DU
with-
magazine
yeah.
contest. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Very cool.
It was a very memorable picture. Some stuff went into getting that one. So.
So talking about getting some of these shots, you know, I know that a lot of hard work and determination goes into a lot of these shots. And what is one of the craziest stories you may have on getting one of these shots? Because I know that there's sometimes that you see a raft of ducks, or you see a field that's far away, or you see whatever it might be, and you're like, I got to get there and I got to get this shot. So I'm sure you have a story of getting one of those shots, and what's maybe one of the craziest things you've ever done to get a shot?
Yeah, so I would say that I'm more than addicted to I just love taking pictures of ducks, and I travel a lot, and where I've always got my camera for 9 months a year riding in my passenger seat, and if I see ducks on the side of the road, I'm like a junkie. I can't drive past it. I have to stop and try to take some pictures. But talking about when you said the most memorable, the 2019 picture that I won with was I mean, I can say it. It was taken on Lake Ashball in Arkansas. Huge freeze back in 2018, and the entire, I think it's a 550-acre lake was frozen, except for just a little bitty bit.
You did not belly crawl out onto the ice.
Right in the middle of the lake, there was probably 10 or 20,000 ducks keeping this one little spot open. And for 3 days, I'd watched them and
Till you couldn't stand.
I could not. And I was like, how do I get out there?
Oh my gosh.
And so we were standing at camp up there, and John Woodard, who works for Drake, was there with me. And I said, "Man, how thick do you think that ice is?" And he was like, "I don't know, man." I said, "Well," so I rode out there, and I was standing on the side of the road, and I'm the only person, because everything's frozen. Like we're shooting them in the dry fields in Arkansas that morning.
Which don't happen.
Yes, that's how cold it was. And I was like, well, I'm just going to ease out there. Because even though I have a big lens, like they were so far out there that I couldn't get what I needed. And so it's crazy. I was actually wearing Crocs. This is how bad this is. And so I started easing out on the ice. I was like, man, this is solid. And I just kept going and kept going.
Did you have socks on?
I think I did.
Crocs and socks.
Yeah, and
Locked in four-wheel drive.
And my Ole Miss sweatpants. But
yeah.
so I kept easing out there. And I was like, well, if I hear it start cracking, I'll just ease back.
Yeah.
And I got probably, I would say, 300 yards out, 200, 300 yards out on the ice.
You didn't have a tether line tied to you, anything like that.
And I was there by myself.
You were in.
If you go through, you're dead.
For sure. And looking back, it was probably one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. But at the time, I was like, man, I'm going to get this shot. And I think there was like 13 bald eagles on these cypress trees around, just sweeping down, picking off these ducks. And I was like, man, I got to go photograph this. So I get out there and I lay down on the ice and I'm taking some shots. And
He hears crap. I'm kidding.
I actually saw blue lights. The sheriff's department comes by, turns on blue lights, because I'm out there laying on my stomach or on my knees taking pictures. And I've got this dam several hundred yards away. So I walk back to them, and they're sitting there on the levee, and they're kind of looking at me and said, what in the hell are you doing? And I was like, I was just taking some pictures. Like, yeah, when we pulled up, we thought, surely this guy's not out there with a gun about to shoot. And they thought I had a gun at first. And they got to looking.
Well, as big as your camera is.
And looking back, like I said, it was not very smart on my part.
Did you get some award-winning photos from it?
So the picture I took was the 2019.
Wow.
Really?
So it turned out.
Yeah, it did.
I don't know if we should really advertise.
Don't do that. But it's just like I said, a pile of ducks in this one little spot they were keeping open. And they all got up at one time. And I think there's like, and it's been a few years now, but I think it's like 9 or 11 different species in that one picture.
Oh, wow.
So there's a black duck in there, some cool stuff.
That is really cool. Well, I may be throwing him out under the bus here when I say this, but one of our good friends, Mark Wheat, I think was also with you possibly on a story about some pintails. Can you? He may have told me that, or I maybe telling a little too much here, whatever. But he told me about a story where you try to get some a photo of some pintails, and how about you tell us that story?
So he and I were filming a television commercial for Drake Waterfowl up in Arkansas. I think it was the first or second week after the season this year, back in February. So we had filmed that morning. We were going to stay that night at Straight Lake. That's where we were filming, and we were going to film the next morning. So that we filmed till early afternoon, and so I went riding around trying to find somewhere to take pictures of ducks. That's just what I do. That's what I love doing. So he said, I'll ride with you. And I was like, all right. So we were coming down the road, and I looked, and it's just a couple thousand pintails out in this field. I was like, so I've got my binoculars. I'm looking. I was like, man, there's a pile of pintails out there. So I pull up my own X, and I'm looking, and I see that Max Sharp, who owns Straight Lake, has the property right next to it leased. Mm-hmm. So I called him. I said, hey, do you know so-and-so who owns this property? And he said, yeah. He said, well, what's up? And I said, well, there's a couple thousand pintails in this field back there. And I want to go. It's half a mile from this road, but I want to go back there and take pictures. And he said, yeah, I'll call him real quick. So he did. And he's like, yeah, man, fire away. He said, you're good to go. So I'm looking at the best way to get there. And I was like, well, we can just, and he had told me to he's like, park here and go across this bridge. And well, there's this low spot in the woods that was probably 30 or 40 yards wide, and it had water in it. And I was like,
you still wearing your Crocs?
No, I had my pair of light boots on then, but this was 3 weeks after the big freeze from last year. So it's seriously cold, and I'm looking, we walked, and I was like, man, I looked, and this water runs into like some more water. I was like, well, can't get across it. So I'm just thinking, like, man, I know I could. It was like a perfect setup where I could crawl up the back of the levee, and they'd never see me, and I'd be 20 yards from them of 2,000 pintails. And Mark was like, well, I don't know how you're going to get in there. And I was like, well, it's not but one way to do it. And so I stripped down to my underwear and left my boots on, and I was thinking it was.
You are kidding.
No.
And this was cold.
Yes, it was.
What month was this?
This was
February?
Like probably the February 10th-ish, somewhere.
All right, carry on.
Yeah. So, like, there was still a little bit of ice in the water and stuff. So Mark was like, man, all right, I'm going to wait here. I'm not going. So I hung my clothes on a tree, and I was thinking it was going to be maybe knee deep. Well, it was about nipple deep. And I'm having to go really slow.
And you've got your camera with you.
So I've got my camera over my shoulder, and I'm holding it. So, because I don't want to fall.
You had the clothes. You weren't taking your clothes with you to the other side?
No, I didn't.
No, they were just
I
back there.
why.
So, you're all in.
Yeah,
you're going
all
to be
in.
down to your skivvies.
Correct.
Photos.
And just underwear, and I'm going across this water, and there was a couple points that at certain depths that it took my breath away for sure. But yeah, so I got across
so many questions you got to follow up with.
So what makes it even worse was I got across there, and right as I get almost all the way across, I hear a bunch of snow geese that are way down this way. They fly over, and so I finally get across it, and I walk down a little bit, and I literally crawled through the last 30 yards up this bank, and I get up there, and the pintails are gone.
Oh, no.
And I guess when the snow geese got up,
At least were there some gadwall there?
it was an empty field. There's not a duck in it when I got there.
Oh, so, and did you take any photos?
Didn't take a picture.
Well, where are the photos of you crossing the ditch and all that? Because I know
I hope they don't exist.
You know, when those pintails got out, they probably like, look at this dude over here in his underwear.
And I thought, it wasn't. I didn't flare them. Only thing I could think was when the snow geese got up. I don't know, something spooked the snow geese, which I assume spooked them as well. And
so there's an interesting parallel here. All right, so you went and did some filming and photography for DUTV earlier. Was it last year? When was that? With Mark Petrie up to I forgot what.
Prince Edward
it was his previous PEI. And so Mark's a good friend of mine. He is our director of conservation science and planning out in the Western region. He was one of the guests on that episode. And that's right, he sent me, y'all took a photo, he sent it to me, and he said, look who I'm with, and I'd already met you at that point. And so Mark was commenting to me later on, he's like, how good a dude you were. He said, Ed is fantastic photographer. He said, we'll have that guy any day of the week. He was really, he's been with a lot of these filming outings. And so very complimentary of you, your photography, your dedication to it, and knowing how to get an angle on the shot or whatever. The parallel here is, though, with you crossing the ditch and your dedication to the cause, crossing the ditch down in your skivvies, there is a story of Mark Petrie in Prairie, Canada one time. We were hunting. He's going to love me telling this story.
Somebody else doing something that they shouldn't be doing like this.
And he has stories to tell of me, too, so it's all fair. We'd kind of split up and we're hunting potholes on our own, and we heard him shoot, and we see him a little bit later on, and I think he was telling the story of how he shot a gadwall, landed in the middle of a pothole. There was no wind whatsoever. He had no dog, nothing like that.
It's not ideal.
And not ideal. And he's like, what am I going to do? I have to go retrieve this duck. So he stripped down to his skivvies, swam into the middle of a pothole in Prairie, Canada to retrieve a gadwall. And of course, our buddy tells a story. He said, I've thought about this a lot. I'm just trying to imagine Mark, because I think he still had his gun with him. He had maybe still had his gun with him to go out there for whatever reason or something. Because I have this vision of Mark just kind of swimming with one arm and the duck in his mouth.
Gun in one arm, gun in one hand, swim with the other, and duck in his mouth.
So you and Petrie are like-minded in your pursuit of
I had a lot of fun with him. He great guy. Yeah. And and he's got a book coming out that I'm really looking forward to. He sent me the first chapter. It was great. I think we filmed DUTV up there for 6 or 7 days, and then everybody left. I stayed, and Mark came in. We filmed an episode of
DU Nation, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we ended up shooting geese and black ducks up in PEI. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed spending some time with Mark.
Yeah. He said it was one of the best hunts he'd been on as well, so that was cool.
Yeah. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit here, I want you to talk about your work-life balance. I know prior to me coming on with Ducks Unlimited, I was able to help you a little bit on a couple projects, and I don't think I've ever seen somebody so dedicated to what they do. And this is the God's honest truth. This ain't me just trying to tell a story but I'll never forget, we were filming in Oklahoma for Crash Landing Outdoors, and we had a really good group of people in there at camp that this specific dates that we were there, and we would go out in the morning, but then we would also go out in the evening. Well, I'm talking about,
it was cold,
freezing. Probably one of the no doubt coldest duck hunts I've ever been on. I think the real feels like -2 that morning or something.
Yeah,
it was brutal. I mean, it was really brutal. Super cold. We hunted that morning. Wasn't much, flying that morning. we end up going back out that evening. But I'm saying all that to say is like I was kind of able to see you behind the scenes, what a lot of people don't get to see. And with you managing as much as you manage from all these different accounts, all these different brands, working, trying to do all this, it was unbelievable to see when Ed wasn't in the field shooting, when we would come back, he was opening his laptop, dumping photos.
Yep.
When he wasn't dumping photos, he was editing photos. When we had to go back out, hunt, he was shooting again. That night when we came back and started playing ping pong and started eating, Ed had that daggum Apple MacBook flip back open, dumping photos, editing. It was a constant until we laid down that night in to eat. I think he was on his computer. And not even just the editing side of things, the travel. I can't tell you how many times I've called you during the waterfowl season. I'm like, Ed, what are you doing? Traveling to Oklahoma, 13 hours. Well, what are you doing next weekend? I've got to go to the Upper Peninsula and film. Well, what are you doing after that? I've got to spend 3 days in Arkansas, then leave there and come and film Lost Break for 2. Like, I've never seen somebody so dedicated and put so much time and effort into doing what you do. How in the world, like I said earlier, you have a wife, you have a kid, and your everyday life. Like we mentioned to you, you're a golfer. You enjoy golfing, which thankfully, you probably ain't doing that much during waterfowl season.
None.
But how in the world can you work-life balance and keep a head on your shoulders and keep everything moving forward with what you do?
I want to add something that I observed. I saw all that you just described in terms of the work that Ed did, shooting whenever we're actually doing the filming, because the first time I met you was part of, I think, a DUTV hunt. And you came back, you did all the editing, the downloading of the photos. The other thing that you did that Matt didn't mention, while the rest of us were sitting around napping or whatever else in the afternoon or doing whatever it was that we were doing.
Skating across ice to get in his Crocs.
Dude went back out in his ghillie suit. So, there's some snow geese back here. I'm gonna go try to get some photos of. There's some white fronts, and I'm like, dude, it's just another flock of snow geese and white fronts.
Take a nap, bro.
Hundreds of photos of those. What are you doing? But you did, and it's like that's when I knew, and it was the first day I ever met you. Like, this dude is real.
Yeah.
How do you do all that?
I mean, honestly, like it does take a good bit of discipline to when Matt was talking when we were out there. We had hunted that morning, that afternoon, and there was like some really cool people there. Megan Patrick was there, Jay Bruce, former baseball player, and everybody's hanging out, having a good time. And as much as I would have loved to have been doing that with them, at the same time, I know that this is my job and I've got to get this done. So, I don't know whether it's just age or maturity that years ago I probably wouldn't have been able to do that, but it's, you just got to get it done. I know the editing part of it, the getting everything organized, it's very time consuming. It's everybody always tells me I have the greatest job in the world, which I 100% agree, but you only get to see parts of it. It's a lot of hours too. But to yours, as far as going back out in the ghillie suit, man, it's when I say I love taking pictures of ducks, I mean it. I
obviously
I spend a lot of hours every year sitting by myself, just a camera and a tripod and trying to take pictures of ducks. And I genuinely really, really enjoy doing it. And no matter how many I take, I always want to take one more good one, and so, I love taking pictures of ducks. So that part makes it easy. The time deal, I've got a family and a lot of projects going. So I don't sleep very much during duck season. A few hours, probably 3 to 4 hours a night on average. There'd be, a handful of times that I just drive all night from one place to the other and then go film and just miss a night. But when I'm home, I've got a lot of editing to do, but I try to literally make the most of my time so that I do get to spend it with my family, and edit as much as I can while I'm on the road. So when I do get home, I don't have more on my plate. I can spend some time with them. And I've got a 5-year-old that's just started duck hunting. And luckily, I think in the years going forward, he'll be tagging along
no doubt
on a bunch of them.
give him a
So,
camera.
Yeah.
Is he going to be shooting a gun or shooting a camera?
Probably, I don't know. He's done both so far. He's actually gone and sat with me, taking some pictures of some ducks, and he seemed like he enjoyed it. And
Okay.
he, same thing with photographing turkeys. He's come and sat with me one morning. We left like 2 or 3 in the morning. Of course, he slept the whole way there, but I drove about 3 hours away to try to take some turkey pictures for the season, and he sat in a little blind with me, and he had a good time. So I think he'll probably like shooting them, but I'm sure at some point he'll want
Pick
to
up
take
the
some
camera.
pictures of them too.
The reason I ask that is because I think most of the time on that DUTV hunt, you were taking photos. But I think one time you put your camera down, you said, I want to take a few shots at birds with a gun. And I think you missed. And you
Probably so.
I think you took a couple of shots and you completely whiffed on them, and everybody was like, Ed, pick your camera back up. Stick to what you know.
That's
man.
about right. Yeah, it's there's been a couple of those. I don't get to shoot a whole lot. I think last year I hunted 81 days and I took a gun 5 of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's crazy is that I feel like over the years I've become a better shot because it's such a similar, when I'm trying to photograph with a camera, it's the same thing with a gun. And actually, I think one of the days last year I was kind of surprised myself a little bit about, but I actually shot pretty good. But yeah, it's been a bunch of times where it's been at the end of a hunt or something, and somebody's said, "Why don't you shoot one?" It's like, "No, I'm good." And they're like, "I'll shoot one." And then it's just the best was. So we went to White Oak one time, and Max Sharpton on Straight Lake had taken me over there, and so they had shot one shy of a 4-man limit. And Max said, "Hey, you shoot the last one." I said, "Man, I'm good." And he said, "No, you're going to shoot the last one." I said, "Max, I'm good, man." He said, "We're not leaving here until you shoot the last one."
2 hours later.
And I said, "All right." And so it's kind of a bigger hole. And I don't know what happened, but I was shooting an over-under. Hand me a gun, I'm shooting over-under, and I've shot a gazillion mallards. Well, these came in, and I popped up out of this, sitting in a blind. I pop up and shoulder the gun. I realized they're way out there. Like, they're not where I thought they were. So I'm shouldered, and I'm just waiting. Here they come, and it's the worst thing you can do. You know, shooting a shotgun's just reaction.
Yeah.
So here I am, like it's just waiting.
Turkey coming in.
and they're coming, and they're coming, they're coming. And I shoot, and I miss at point blank, like 20 yards, like maybe even 15. And it was that, oh man, I missed. And of course, then I rush a second shot, and I miss. And I squeeze again, and it dawns on me that I'm shooting an over-under. And everybody had a good laugh, and I politely handed the gun back to him, and I said, "Where's my camera? Let me do something I'm somewhat decent at this," because it was like nobody's ever missed worse than I missed those two. They were just backpedaling, and I don't know how you could miss, but I did.
I've done it. I've done it.
Yeah, we've all done it. Every duck hunter's done it. But you do a really good job, you know, and prior to, like I said, whenever I was a very amateur photographer, but on those jobs that you could shoot some, you had to say, all right, look, it's time to, you know, put the gun down and take pictures. And you do a really good job of realizing, hey, I'm there to do a job, and I'm going to do a job, you know, right.
Yeah. And truthfully, like, everybody always asks me about, man, you don't miss hunting, and I really don't. Like, I'm there. Like,
Yeah.
it's to me, it's not.
And your passion's pictures.
Correct. Like, I get just as much enjoyment out of getting one framed up just right.
Mhm.
Probably more so than somebody does that shot one. A couple of years ago, the last hunt of the season, and a couple of buddies of mine we'd been filming all season, and we had a really good last 2 weeks season, been really good, and I had tons of more footage than I could have used. And he said, "Eddie, he's like, why don't you take your gun last day?" And I said, "All right." And so first group came in, lined up perfect, and it was a sunny southeast wind, clear, and which it's like 3 days a year, I say, is the photographer's dream is a sunny southeast wind duck hunting, because everything's just perfectly front lit. And a big group of ducks comes in, and we shot 5. The 5 of them came in, we shot all 5 of them, and all I could think was, man, that'd have been such a good grouped video.
You couldn't even enjoy that.
Literally, I couldn't. That's all I could think was, man, it'd been such a good video with them just perfect in the sun. And so,
Yeah.
Do you prefer still photography or video?
stills, for sure.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's just, It's what I've always, ever since I picked up a camera, I've just loved taking pictures. I mean, video, it's more, I guess it's, your video to tell a story a lot of times, or, and trying to get certain shots to put together this bigger thing where, to me, it's taking a photo. It's just it's this one frozen moment in time where you get to see exactly what I saw for that one split second, whether it's a duck coming in or a dog coming back or whatever it is. And
you get more detail.
Yeah.
It's that
It's frozen.
you get to focus, for me
anyway,
anyway,
one thing.
you get to focus on every aspect of the detail of whatever the subject is.
Right. Yeah. It's this one duck or this one group of ducks, and it's frozen right there. And it's just, instead of just, but for some reason, I've just always liked taking pictures. Since I picked up a camera, it's spent a lot of time videoing, and I'd love it doing it as well. But I guess I'm always going to be a photographer at heart. And so,
yeah, no doubt. Well, you've been to a lot of cool places, filming all over. For sure, filming and taking photos all across the United States, but you've also been out of the country. Where would you say has been the coolest place you've got to go?
I would say I've been very fortunate. I think I've been helping film DUTV for like 4 or 5 years now. So we've gotten to go to some really cool places with them, and we've gone out west, to Oregon and Washington, which was Washington was one of the prettiest places I've been. Done the Great Salt Lake Coffin Hunt.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was really cool. It was up there. Ogden Bay, did a swan hunt, filmed a swan hunt in Ogden Bay, which is like probably the prettiest place I've ever been, northern Utah. I would say my favorite place that I've ever been was this past year. We went to Prince Edward Island, where Doc, you were talking about. Mark was there.
Yep.
And I think it was. There's a lot that went into it. So we had been DUTV had been trying to film this hunt for like 4 years. This Prince Edward Island hunt, and the first year it was COVID, and the second year they had opened the border back up. But the restrictions on the island were so bad that it was kind of just wasn't worth it. And then 2 seasons ago, we were scheduled to fly out like on Thursday, and a hurricane hits the island on Monday. And I was like, well, it's never going to happen. And my wife, I didn't know much about Prince Edward Island at the time years ago, but my wife was like, it's one of the prettiest places in the world. She's like, I've always wanted to go there. And I was like, oh, okay. And we're going to go hunt black ducks, which is at the time was like one of the few ducks that I hadn't photographed. So I was really excited. And then this past season, we finally got to do it, and it didn't disappoint. It was,
wow.
I mean, we just had an absolute blast. It literally is one of the prettiest places I've ever been. But I think it was more so the people we hunted with. We hunted with Paul McKinnon and a bunch of his buddies up there, and we stayed at their house. I was there like, I guess, 10 days with them. And it was like, I felt like I was family when I left. Like, he and I still talk every week, if not every other day. We just had a blast. And those guys, they knew exactly what they knew what they were doing. They were some very, very good waterfowl hunters. I think we were there. I was there 10 days. I think we hunted 7 of the 10, and we limited out every single time we hunted.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it was impressive. And
wow,
that's tough to do, man. It's those guys, they were out scouting every day. They've just got a cool group. They've got a couple young guys. They're like in their early 20s. They've got guys that are in their 60s, and they all just kind of mesh together. And
that was when Petrie was with you.
Correct.
Yeah, because he described the same thing. He said that was absolute best series of hunts I've ever been on.
Wow.
They were fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's just gorgeous up there. The whole island itself, it was just, everywhere you went it was beautiful. And then to have a great group of guys there that we got to know and become friends with, and just the hospitality was unbelievable, and just literally made some lifelong friends. And then to have limit out every time you go, it makes it even better.
Puts that cherry on top.
But those guys, I mean, they work. I actually talked to Paulie the other day, and he was out scouting for a new lease. And I was like, man, it's August. They've got it on the mind already. And so it's probably my favorite hunt I've been on was up at Prince Edward Island.
Wow.
So,
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like a blast. All right. You clearly have a strong social media following. You have a lot of people that admire your work, keep up with you just for your photos. Then you have just your everyday follower. You have a wide variety of followers. So I know that I'm sure you get a lot of questions all the time from people. Hey, what kind of gear do you use? Hey, how do you edit your photos? Hey, how can I get involved with brands? Hey, how can I do this, this, and this, whatever. But I'm sure one of those top questions is, what are you shooting with? You know, what kind of gear do you use? What lens are you using? So can you talk a little bit about that? But before you do that, can you show us
It just so
something
happens.
that you brought
Just so
today?
happens.
Well, Matt asked me to, so this is,
I mean,
the power of
I
video.
think we need to scoot back.
It's
For
like,
this.
like the power of video. We previously, if you're listening to this audio only, go check it out on Ducks Unlimited's YouTube channel. We now have video with the Ducks Unlimited podcast, and you're going to want to see this.
You're gonna want to see this.
so I've actually got 2 of these. This is my newest one. The old one was for an old camera, and it was like 13 pounds. This one's a lot lighter, but so this is my waterfowl.
Check
camera.
that bazooka out.
Literally, this rides around in my passenger seat 9 months out of the year, and so because you never know, I'll never know when I'm going to see ducks or something on the side of the road.
You have a camo.
Yeah, I got a camo sleeve for it, but
I mean-
in the summer I usually have it off.
You might
look
think it's a
at
snow
that.
goose crawling out.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. But
So
it's-
can you walk us through kind of this setup, like
So
what
this
you're
is
running right here?
So this is a Canon R5 body.
Mhm.
It's just got a cage and a battery grip on
Yep.
it. And then this is their 600 f4 prime. So it's not a zoom lens. It's 600 millimeters at all times. So it's a fixed lens.
Wow.
And I had the old one that went to a DS when I still shot a DSLR camera. And when they came out with the mirrorless cameras, it would fit on there, but it had to have a adapter, and the focus wasn't fast enough for shooting waterfowl. And so I finally broke down and bought another one, and this one's a whole lot lighter, so it's a whole lot easier to carry. Like I said, the old one I
I
have.
can't even see you.
I know. We're gonna have to.
So the old one,
Leave it.
so the old one I've got is like 13 pounds, 13.7 pounds. I think this one's a little over 4.
So what's a rig like that run?
The body, I don't know what they are now, but I think the body was 4,000 or 5,000 when I bought it, and the lens is just shy of 15,000.
So you're looking at
Good
roughly $20,000.
Creeping up on 20,000.
And this is the prime example of how much pride you take in your work, but also how valuable your work is. People that are just like, oh, that's just a photo, or can I just use this photo? Can you just send me a bunch of photos? Can I use your photo? Well, yeah, but people don't realize, and whenever, say, you send a quote to somebody for coming to account for 3 days, and you give them that number, and they're like, well, I ain't paying that.
I just use my iPhone.
Yeah. But people don't realize you're looking at $20,000 just in your body and lens. That ain't your computer to edit. That's not all your softwares that you use. That's not your other
Not your-
lens that
not
you
your
use.
time.
That's not your expertise and time that you can't teach. But what I'm saying is just this alone, $20,000.
Mhm.
And people don't understand the importance of when you do turn in a quote or when you do tell somebody your prices. Well, you're not just, like Dr. Mike said, you're not getting a $200 camera and saying, all right, boys, let's go take some photos.
True, but at the same time, like you can. I mean, I shot a lot of years with
Correct.
without before I was doing it full time. Some of the better pictures I've taken over the years were with a less expensive.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily have the best.
The best.
You know,
And
having the
this is
best
what you
oven
do.
doesn't make you necessarily a world class chef.
This is what you
but,
do.
Yeah, but if you're, but when you're having the best equipment will help.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
for
when
sure.
when you have as much people that view your stuff and you solely depend on this for a living, I mean, it makes sense. But like you said, that was leading into my next question is a lot of people are like, there's no way I would ever even come close to spend that. And that's fine because like you said, there's a lot of other options out there.
For sure.
A lot. Like, I mean, there's like, for example, there's certain cameras that $2,000 and you can take phenomenal
For sure.
photos with. So, I mean, it don't have to be a $20,000 rig to get a good photo. Now, like you
Right.
said, if you're trying to get a shot at 200 yards and you're trying to get it pristine to put on a magazine, odds are you're going to have to get something that's going to be more pricey.
It's going to help for sure. I mean, it's like they make Tamron makes a version of this that's 600 that's 1,500 or 1,400 instead of 14,000, 15,000.
Yeah.
And that I shot I've got 2 of them that I've had for years that I actually still use from time to time if I'm getting on a plane. I got to where I take this on a plane now, but years ago I would just take my smaller 600 because it wasn't as big. And it was a 150 to 600, so it was a zoom, so you could actually make it smaller. And I could fit it in my backpack. But yeah, I mean, I've taken a lot of pictures. So you can, that's what I get asked a lot is like, hey, what's a great starter camera? What do you shoot? All this stuff. But a lot of them is like, hey, I want to take pictures of ducks, or what's a good lens? And that's usually one of the ones I suggest because it's $1,500 and it's not.
Yeah. Don't break the bank.
Correct.
Was this the camera and lens that you had on your shoulder as you were crossing the ditch?
That's it. Yeah.
And belly crawling out onto the ice.
And hey, that's another thing is you had never crossed that ditch before. You could have hit a beaver run, and that could have been bye-bye.
Yeah, well, it's insured, so it's
Still.
it would still would have. I still probably would have cried a little bit.
Oh,
but
no doubt.
yeah, I mean, it's part of it.
Yeah.
We took one last year. We got through with a hunt, hunting some public land up in Arkansas, and so we came back. We got to a 3-way stop, or I guess the one I'm talking about. But we made a left there and going to this camp, and I could look through the woods and this field that was private, and it was just mallards pouring in it. And I was like, man, it's right through there, and a few hundred yards. I looked at my map, and it was like 706 yards or something, but it was all waist deep cypress over there to it. And I had to go, and I was like, man. All right, so I got to the camp. We took all our stuff inside, and I put my waders back on.
Okay, good. Put your waders on.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, I for wading out there and literally had to go super slow because it's cypress knee after cypress knee. I was like, man, if I drop, and this was mid-season, and I was like, man, if I drop this,
because by the time you insurance claim
Correct.
it and do all that, and they send you the check and you reorder, I mean,
so
It's
I'm
done.
Well, and I've got a tripod on one shoulder, so it's
which ain't light.
correct. But I got over there and got set up under this. It was right on the last little piece of public, and looking out this private field. I set up right there, and it's a perfect tree hanging over some leaves. It still had a few leaves on it, so got set up. And the first duck that comes in, sun was perfect. Snapped it. It was a banded mallard.
No way.
No.
Yeah. This one too.
Wow.
That was the first picture. And I was like, well, this was worth the walk over here.
That's awesome. And look, we noticed that there's some signatures on that there on your camera. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, just some folks some cool people I've hunted with over, I guess, the last year or two. Just some country, like Brantley Gilbert, Riley Green, Dylan Marlowe,
Wow.
John Langston, Megan Patrick, and some baseball players, Archie
really
Bradley and
cool.
Adrian Hauser, and some guys I've hunted
Very
with.
cool. Wow.
Just something I decided to start doing last year.
No doubt.
They still there's a bunch of folks that I've hunted with that I got to get to sign it, but I just started doing it last year, and so it'd be
That's
something cool
awesome.
to do.
That is really, really cool.
You can take that off and replace it, and so
Oh, there you go.
That's
put,
cool.
put a new one on there one day. So,
That is
yeah,
awesome.
that's the one that
That's
rides
the
around.
beast.
That's the one that rides around in my passenger seat for literally about 9 months a year,
Wow.
from September 1st to end of May or so.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, Ed, it has been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for
Appreciate
taking
y'all
the
having me
time to
on.
come on the Ducks Limited podcast and share all your ins and outs and bringing the beast. And we can't thank you enough. It's been a pleasure.
I
Dr.
appreciate
Mike,
it.
thank you as well.
Same. It's great to be here, Matt. Ed, so fantastic.
It's
Spend some time with
always great to get to see Doc Brasher.
That's it.
Doesn't get any better than that. Any reason to
Always.
see him is always a good time.
That's it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Ducks Limited podcast.
Thank you for listening to the DU Podcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit ducks.org/DU Podcast. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, Stay tuned to the ducks.